2023 is here, and I'm going to kick off the year with Arturia's Mini Brute. I know Zach has already done it. Tough beans, so I'm going to get a little bit deeper into it, so stick around. Hello, Internet. Chris Cline here with Alamo Music Center in San Antonio, Texas. It is 2023. We're going to have a bunch of new content for you this year. And of course, you know, as I said in my opening, I'm going to talk about this. And I know Zach already has, but he has more of his philosophical leanings on it. And I come from more of a technical, background and how you can use it. Before we do move on, though, I'd like to ask that you subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. And of course, we have all of our other channels that you can find down below. Piano, accordion, bass, guitar, no shortage of content coming from us. We want to inform you to the best of our ability and help to make your life a little bit easier when you're looking at new instruments or trying to decide what you want to buy. So now that that's out of the way, let's talk about Arturia's MINIFREAK. It's their latest offering. This synth is a powerhouse. It's very small. It's built very, very well. It has a metal chassis. The top, of course, is plastic, but it is feature-packed. It is a little different than the MicroFreak. There are some trade-offs, of course. The biggest trade-off for me was the lack of CV and gate connections on the MINIFREAK, which the MicroFreak does have. They're probably trying to get you to buy that. They are, once again, slightly different, but the trade-offs are definitely beneficial. Aside from that, when it comes to the MINIFREAK, we have MIDI in, out, and through. We have clock in and out, analog clock in and out, as well as reset. Audio input, stereo out, headphones, power. It just offers quite a bit. Lots of tactile functionality from the front, so if you want to change things really quick on the fly, you can do that. Very, very powerful synth engine, 22 oscillators in total from Mutable and, who's the other company? Noise Engineering, trying to regurgitate all this information that's in my head. A 6-voice polyphonic, 12-voice paraphonic. It's absolutely stunning in what it offers as far as sound design and flexibility. I would put this up against in the same price point. This is $599 Waldorf's Blofeld. I think that this is actually a much more robust synth. It's going to give you a lot more. The Blofeld, of course, is tabletop at this same price point. I think that they raised the price last year to $579, maybe $599 for years. It was $499. And I have a Blofeld. If I were going to choose between the two right now, I would go with this. This is so much fun. I can't wait to take it home and dive into it a little bit more. And that's what we're going to do right now. We're going to dive into it. We're going to look at the front panel. We're going to listen to some sounds. We're going to manipulate some sounds. We're going to play the mod matrix. We're just going to have a little bit of fun with Arturia's latest offerings. So let's do this. So here we are with Arturia's MINIFREAK. Real quick, I went over the specs briefly. I didn't get into everything, so let's go ahead and cover that again really quickly, and then we're going to start playing. So 6 voices, 22 oscillator modes, sourced from Mutable Instruments and Noise Engineering. 6-voice poly, 12-voice paraphonic. You can also have mono and unison modes. 2 LFOs, built-in effects. 3 built-in effects with 10 different algorithms, 5-pin MIDI out and through. It's nice to have that through option again so you can pass things through it. Analog clock in and out, analog filter, low pass, high pass, and band pass. The filter sounds great, and I think that really lends itself to the sound of this synth as well. It doesn't sound like your typical digital synthesizer. It is very much a hybrid affair here. And one of the big bonuses I think for a lot of you out there is that you also have the ability to plug this synth in to your DAW as a virtual instrument. So in other words, when you buy the MINIFREAK, you get a VST or a plug-in instrument that mirrors this synth. So if you're doing stuff in Ableton, Fruity Loops, whatever your DAW is, and you want to go out and do something live, well, you don't have to bring this out with you. You can go ahead and have everything sequenced within your DAW, and then you can instantiate the MINIFREAK plugin. That plugin only comes with this synth, so be aware of that. 37 slim keys, metal chassis, plastic on top. You've got your pitch bend, you have modulation, which can also be macros, which really opens up the synth to even more sound sculpting capabilities. You have your modulation matrix over here, just like you did on the MINIFREAK. And then everything else is tactile, which also lends itself to feeling more like an analog instrument. You can dial in your oscillators here, you have your filters, you have a cycling envelope, which is actually a really, really cool feature. Digital effects, once again, 3 slots. And then you have your envelope as well, attack, decay, sustain, release. And then down here on the very far right, we have our tempo and swing, which can also serve other purposes. You will notice that we have a shift key, and then there are blue silkscreen messages or words underneath some of our knobs, potentiometers, and buttons. This shift key is going to come into play there as well as for other features. Getting around on the synth is really, really easy. If we want to play anything, well, we turn it on and then we play notes. When you turn it on, by default, it has the macros enabled, not your standard pitch bend and modulation. The macros are going to allow you to assign what would typically be pitch bend and modulation to these capacitance-based strips, so you can actually engage other functions. You can, open up filters. You can have the LFO change, whatever you want it to do. It's really up to you. So let me go ahead and play a note, and you can see what happens to this first preset, Crusty Pluck. It turns into more of a pad. So we're actually and then we have an LFO attached to this that we can speed up and slow down. So tons of functionality and playability with all the controls that exist here. And as you can tell, the filter can also become self-oscillating. So let's explore a couple of other sounds. Here's one that's called Mr. Funky, which is going to be a bass. Oh, and the macro is on. So it's like we have a ring modulator or a bit crusher on there. So let's turn on the standard pitch bend and modulation. The thing I like about these capacitance strips is you can touch them anywhere. So instead of it being a continuous motion, well, now we can just kind of like press it wherever we want, and we can create different types of patterns or degrees of modulation and or pitch bend, as opposed to being tied down to something that is spring-loaded, which to me is very, very cool, especially if you think in percussive terms. So let's listen to some more sounds. This one is called Mojo. Let's go to the macros and see what happens. Okay. And that's just opening up our filter. Okay. Ooh. Now this patch is called Impale. It is a bass patch. So for those of you that are into drum and bass or jungle or whatever, this might be a patch that you would gravitate towards immediately. lot of fun. So changing sounds is very, very easy. We just use the preset knob here. Press down on it to enter or to select the preset. Oh, that's nice. Some extra harmonics there poking out. Really, really cool. So let's actually take a look at the different types of waveforms that exist in here, or the different types of oscillators. So let's go ahead and get an init, an initialize patch. To make that happen, I'm just going to press down the preset encoder. And there we go. Very, very generic. We are on oscillator 1. Let's go to oscillator 2. Let's make sure that's all the way down. Oscillator 1 is all the way up. So it's very generic right now. Triangle or, excuse me, sawtooth type of sound. So we can choose what type of waveform or oscillator we want to use. So we have the super wave, which is like a super saw. And so we have a lot of different waveforms on here. This is the harmonic oscillator. And if we start adjusting these other parameters, the timbre and the shape, you will notice it starts to change pretty quickly. And let's turn the shape all the way down. With the timbre, we're just incorporating more harmonics into the sound. If we go back to superwave, we can get really crazy with the detune LFO. And the shape is just adjusting the volume and the blend of the different waveforms that are already incorporated into the master waveform, if you will, or the oscillator. So the car plus string, or the car plus strong, excuse me, is going to be more of like a percussive, resonant, exciter type of waveform, if you will, or oscillator, where you have like a bowed or a plucked type of sound. So right here, we're just hearing what would be considered plucked. We can turn up the bow amount by changing the waveform. Timbre is going to change the position. And then shape changes the decay. Virtual analog. So here we have a 2-operator FM. So here we're just changing the ratio. That's going to adjust the amount, the timbre, and the shape. It's manipulating the feedback. Formant. So the formant oscillator is going to allow us to have more vocally types of sounds, which is just really more of like a bandpass filter that's being used to a great degree. And then we have speech.
Frequency, 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 J, yellow, yellow, 3, J, Julia, frequency, 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 sequencer, modulator, modular, generator, filter, digital.
So all kinds of fun to be had here, and you know, honestly, haven't played with this one oscillator too much. Then we have noise. There's the ring modulation territory here. That just sounds like a bit crusher there. So depending on how you manipulate the wave, the timbre, and the shape just incorporates what sounds like a square wave into the equation. Here's where you have all your fun with the noise generator. So here we have a saw. Can actually incorporate noise into it. And then we can also process audio coming into the device. And I don't have it set up for that. That would be for another demonstration. But you can bring audio into it, and it does process it in the digital domain. So you can run it through the circuitry of the keyboard. Now there's also a second oscillator, and the second oscillator can do a number of different things, one of which is you can actually feed oscillator 1 into oscillator 2, which could give us some interesting results. But let's go back to oscillator 1, and let's go ahead and try to build something real fast. Let's do something a little more exciting. Okay, so we're using the harmonic oscillator here. This is very much like an additive type of synthesizer synthesis. As we add more harmonics into the oscillator, it starts to change the timbre and the feel of the oscillator. Okay, so now what we want to do is let's go to our second oscillator. Let's go ahead and turn it up. And let's maybe choose, now we have the super wave or the super saw in there. So this is the exciter. Turn the bow up. Okay. Now we have our filter. have a standard low pass filter on here. Let's mess with our envelope. Take it back into poly mode. Okay, let's go ahead and add some effects. So we have effects 1. Let's go ahead and choose, got a flanger. Let's do some kind, how about we do chorus? Turn the rate down. And the balance. Let's go to effects 2. So now we have our delay, chorus, should we go for a third effect? Why not? Let's add some reverb. Reverb. Let's turn the blend up. So now we've built the sound. It's pretty basic. We've used both of the oscillators. It is in poly mode. We have manipulated the envelope. The digital effects, all 3 are on. We have chorus, delay, reverb. The filter is in low pass mode. And right now, you don't seem to be getting much off of the modulation. However, pitch bend is working as it should. Now, we do have 2 LFOs that we can play with. And in order to get to those LFOs, we come over here to our modulation matrix. And as you can see, we have this grid. And as I turn the potentiometer, it's going to start with, or it's going to cycle through our different sources and our destinations. So I'm just going to go to LFO 1. We're going to send that to our pitch. So go ahead and click on that. So now we have LFO 1 engaged. And then we can go to LFO 2. Oops. Make sure I didn't just undo what I was working with. Okay. All right. So now we have it slightly detuning. So we have our first LFO engaged. Let's go ahead and go to LFO number 2. And let's see. So we can see here that we're on LFO 2, which is our source, our destination. Let's send it to our cutoff for our filter. And so right here I can manipulate the LFO further. LFO1. Okay. So now we have LFO1, which is attached to our pitch 1 and 2, which has to do with both of our oscillators, of course. LFO2 is now attached to our cutoff. And there's so much more that we can do. We have, again, other modulation sources. We have this cycling envelope over here, our standard envelope or ADSR, LFO1 and 2, of course, velocity, wheel, and the keyboard. So we can actually do some keyboard mapping as well to manipulate our different destinations, which is really, really nice. So again, no shortage of ways to manipulate your sound, to blend sounds, to morph between them, assigning different devices to help modulate. So, you know, aftertouch, pitch bend, modulation, and then of course macros, which turns these into macros 1 and 2, which they are probably not assigned right now because we're working with an initialized patch, but we have already developed something pretty quickly, which could be used as some sort of, you know, melodic device, I guess, if you will. So let's go ahead and let's look at the arpeggiator. I don't want to get too lost in the weeds with all this stuff here because we can spend a whole lot of time with the modulation matrix. Obviously, there's no shortage of ways that we can actually move things in and around the keyboard or within the software. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at the arpeggiator. I'm going to go ahead and turn it on. And as we can see here, it is in up mode. 1 octave. We can go ahead and we can change all these things as we're playing around with the arpeggiator. So let's go ahead and just get it fired up. I'm going to go ahead and press hold here. Turn the tempo way down. Go. So right now it's going up. We can go down, up and down, random. Now order is whatever order I press the keys in. Walk is kind of another randomized feature. Basically the way it's stated in the manual is it's first to last, starts on first note, 25% chance to play the previous or current one, 50% chance to play the next one. So wrap your head around that. In other words, it's going to do kind of, well, I mean, I guess 25% chance to play the previous or current one, 50% chance to play the next one. That's a mouthful. It is a random feature, but there is some math incorporated into it. Now we can also change how many octaves. 2 octaves. 3 octaves. Let's get some delay in here. And 4 octaves. Now there are also modifiers. So if we look here, we have the arpeggiator modes, the range, and then we have repeat, ratchet, random, and mutate. Now repeat So as you can see, repeat is doubling the notes. Ratchet double triggers. So random octave. And then mutate gradually changes the notes in the pattern. I'm not hearing a lot of change there. Oh, okay, there we go. Interesting. So the arpeggiator is really, really robust. Go ahead and turn it off. Now, the sequencer is something on here that I haven't played with yet. I have not had a chance. Ooh. Okay, so to engage the sequencer, press the sequence button, and I haven't really played with this yet, so I'm kind of fumbling around with it. I'm going to presume that there's something in here already, so if I press play, there is something there. Now, if we want to record something, I'm going to just press record, and then let's play. So if I press keys, is it going to... It's going to play the sequence and transpose it. So we can go in and we can actually adjust the sequence by just manipulating certain steps. And as you saw, if we have the sequencer engaged and if I press a key, it's going to transpose whatever sequence that I played, which is really quite nice. There are other tricks that we can get into with the sequencer as well, but I don't want to dive into all that because we're going to bring it into some heavy lifting, and I just want to have a nice basic overview of this keyboard. And at this point, we have pretty much covered all the basic functionality that you have from the front paddle. We didn't talk about the cycling envelope. That's something that maybe we could get to later. I just wanted you to have just a basic, once again, overview of how the synth works, how it's laid out. It's really easy to get around on. You can't get much deeper with the modulation matrix and as well as assigning macros. And some of the oscillators that they have in here will also allow you to do some pretty tricked out things, but that's just a little more advanced. So I think that, this is probably a good stopping point because we have looked at quite a bit of the foundation of the MINIFREAK. It was a little bit of a deeper dive than what Zach did. We didn't listen to a lot of the sounds, but hopefully you have a better idea of how this thing works, how the synthesizer works. I keep on saying thing, I believe, and I should probably stop doing that. It's not just a thing, it's a synth. If you end up with one of these in your arsenal, we would like for you to share your thoughts on it and let us know how you feel about its programmability and how it functions as a performance instrument as well. And maybe even if you're using it as a controller in your setup, are you finding that it's easy to route different parameters as CC messages and whatnot, or other types of MIDI messages. All right, thanks for sticking around and taking a look at the MINIFREAK with me. I hope you got something out of it. Maybe this is something that you're going to add to your arsenal this year. I very rarely mention price point. At least I try to not mention it too much. And at $599, I can't believe how much they packed into this. I know Zach said the same thing about, how many features, the feature sets that are included in this. Maybe it's because of all their R&D that they're able to offer these instruments at a lower price point. That makes a lot of sense to me. I don't think about things like that too much. I think about how I can use them, how easy they are to function, and this checks so many boxes for me. Again, my only rub with this is the lack of CV and gate, so I can interface this with my modular rig. But at the same time, I can spit out MIDI and go into the standard 5-pin MIDI on my modular rig, and then that I've got ways to convert that as well. So maybe I'm just it's first world problems. I was going to say third world problems. That'd be really weird and horrible for me to say. First world problems with MIDI. Thanks for sticking around once again. I hope to hear more of what you are doing out there in the internet world this year. Share some of what you're doing in our comments below. Give us an idea of of how you're utilizing some of these tools and what kind of music you're creating. Let's keep the comments once again civil. We're trying to create community here, and we're trying to build our chops. And I'm not perfect. None of us are perfect. So let's keep everything civil down there, and let's have a really, really healthy 2023. I'm super excited about it. I've got a lot of projects on my slate already. I'm sure you do too. Once again, I want to hear about them. I'm going to stop talking. Chris Cline, Alamo Music Center in San Antonio. Be kind to each other, love each other, keep on creating, and I will see you again soon.